Hey there, good evening, welcome to Prog Monster. My name is Murph, I am the host of this show, a show dedicated to progressive rock and other forms of rock music. So today, it's my Monday night look back at a classic rock album, and we're going to be doing this particular album here. Let's get my hand out of the way. ACDC, Highway to Hell. Here we got Malcolm Young, his brother Angus, the legendary Bon Scott, and I want to say this is Rudd here between Malcolm and Angus, and then Cliff Williams on the top here. Yeah, that's what it is. Look how young they are here, eh? So good, this album. One of the best hard rock albums ever produced. Lots of things about this album have come together for AC/DC. They had a raw, kind of high energy, kind of raw sound to them, with lots of like really catchy riffs and lots of really strong guitar and rhythm section. But this album puts it all together, and it's raw still, but it has a production sound to it that's stronger than any of their previous albums, I think. It sounds more polished, I guess is the best way to put it. But and unlike most of their predecessing albums, which had a lot of really solid, great tracks on them, but had some songs that were a little bit weak, this one has none. This one is like solid from top to bottom. And that would continue with their next album, Back in Black. But this album features Bon Scott, who to me is one of the greatest rock and roll frontmen of all time. To tell you how big AC/DC was at one point, and still are, they came to Canada for the SARS Festival, and they were billed ahead of Rush. So they appeared ahead of Rush. Like they were, like, in the billing, they were only behind the Stones. That's how big they were. Even Rush, and to come into Canada and be billed ahead of Rush, you got to be damn good, man. You got to be damn good. And one of the great rhythm sections in rock and roll history. Yeah, you have a great vocalist, legendary frontman, Bon Scott. You have one of the most recognizable rock stars in rock music in Angus Young, with his antics on stage and his guitar playing at his energy level unsurpassed by anybody. And then you have this rhythm section of Malcolm Young, Phil Rudd, and Cliff Williams that just make this group so much better. Like the riffs that they put out, Malcolm Young being the main guy here, are legendary. There's very few bands that have as many well-known riffs as these guys. Okay, so I've blown smoke on them for a few minutes here, but I think it's necessary because they deserve, are they underrated? No, of course not, but you can't say enough good stuff about them. So this album was released on July the 27th, 1979, and was actually put together in 3 different studios. In the Albert Studio in Sydney, Australia, at the Criteria Studio in Miami, in the United States, in Miami, Florida, and then the Round... Again, I need to work on my writing. I can't read it. But it was in London. Anyway, so you have 3 studios. So it really does have an international flavor to it. Their other albums were primarily put together in Australia. And although they have some great tracks on them, this one really puts it all together. There's no bad tracks here at all. Album's about 41 minutes in length. That's just about where a perfect length of an album should be, in my opinion. Anywhere between 35, 45, anywhere between those two is pretty good. They're reaching upper edge a bit, but still pretty good. Albert label, Atlantic label. Producer, Mutt Lange. And you can tell that it's much more polished than some of their predecessor albums. So this album really put them on the map. Up until this album, they were kind of known, but not overly known. This album really burst them out onto the international scene, and they became one of the greatest rock bands in history. Okay, on the band, it's featured, of course, we've already labeled everybody. Bon Scott is the lead vocalist and front man, and a great one he is at both. Angus and Malcolm Young are the guitar players. Angus pulling the lead and all of those antics he likes to do on stage. Such a high energy individual. And then you have Malcolm Young, reserved maybe a little bit, but just pounding out those rhythms. And to me, the riffs and the rhythms on ACDC is what set them apart from so many wannabe hard rock great bands. And they don't take a backseat to anybody in that area. Phil Rudd on the drums, keeping part of that rhythm section, and Cliff Williams on bass. And actually Cliff Williams and Malcolm Young do the backing vocals for this particular album. So anyways, on to the track. So we have, basically, I'm going to move ahead before I start knocking shit over on my head again. Opening track, title track, Highway to Hell. Considered one of their anthemic song. Like most people, when they think of AC/DC, it's this one or Back in Black. Those are the two big ones, I think, for the anthemic songs for the group. You'll see a lot of these stupid this People Got Talent shows, the talent shows they do, and everybody who does a hard rock song, this is almost one of the songs that they choose. It's always one of the songs they choose, Highway to Hell. Great track. It was my favorite track on the album when it first came out. Between this and where is it? Shot Down in Flames. Yeah, those were my two favorite at the beginning. But it's been killed. People just play this sucker to death, man. I don't listen to the radio because of this kind of thing, and Highway to Hell has just been beaten to the pulp here, as has some of other AC/DC radio-friendly songs, which to me is kind of a stupid phrase because I think all their songs are radio-friendly. But anyways, it's been browbeaten, and as much as I liked the song, I just don't need to hear it anymore. It's beaten to death. I don't want to hear it no more. Okay, the next song on has a cool riff, and Bon's vocals are through the rafters on this song. Girls Got Rhythm, a song I liked quite a bit early on. Great track. Does get some airplay, but not a ton of it. Not as much as some of the other stuff. Not enough to tear me down, anyways. Then we get to the next song, Walk All Over You. I really like the opening riff in this song. It's really great, and has one of the stronger solos from the album as well. Probably up there among my favorite songs on the album. Such a cool riff. Then we get to probably my favorite track on the album, which is Touch Too Much. Has been my favorite track on this album for some time. Just such a great riff. I love that rhythm section on this whole song. They just pound it out, and they do the harmonic vocals, or harmony vocals if you want to call it that, for AC/DC. I wouldn't call it that. I would say the backing vocals for the two, for Bon Scott, are really good on this track. I think amongst their best. Then you get to the last song on the first side, but of course this is a CD, so there are no sides. Beating Around the Bush. Pretty heavy guitar here. Lots of screaming from Bon Scott on this song. A lot of fast-paced guitar, if that's what you want. A really different sounding song, but I like it a lot. Then we get to side 2, which starts out with Shot Down in Flames, one of my favorite songs by them again. Not as, I don't listen to it as much because I think it gets, again, too much airplay. The riffs are great on this. Maybe maybe one of their best riffs of all time, to be honest with you. It has such a catchy riff to it. Then we get to arguably my second favorite song on the album, which is Get It Hot. Now, this was a song I didn't really listen to much early on, but in recent years it's become one of my favorites by them. Just a fantastic, great riff, another great riff. Like, you might as well just say the whole album is one great riff. That's what it is. They just have some of the best riffs I've ever heard. So I love this song a lot too. If You Want Blood, You Got It. More great riffing again. The solo on this is really good as well. Angus does one of those like crashing kind of solos that he does, that he's known for. Nobody does them quite like that. I can never understand how anybody can jump around and bang their head around on stage and still get these solos out without paying attention. It's unbelievable, you know. Okay, so then you got the ninth track, which is Love Hungry Man. I love the drums and the bass at the beginning of this song. Really sets it up. It's a bit more of a mellow song. Mellow. And the one thing I love about ACDC is that you will not find ballads anywhere. I don't remember there being a single ballad. Maybe in the later albums, I don't know, but definitely not on the Bon Scott era. There are no such thing as ballads, you know, and that's the part about them. One of the parts about them that I love is they are a hard rock, bordering on heavy metal band at times that just bangs and crunches their way along and says what they want to say, you know. That I love about them. Then you have the final track, Night Prowler. Maybe the most bluesy track on the album. It's the longest track on the album as well. Some real bluesy stuff in here. Almost, I want to use the word swagger here. There's a lot of swagger on this song, I think. And I think it's the only thing that's kind of iconic about this song is that it's, for lack of a better term, the last song that Bon Scott ever sang on for them on a studio album. But he did it so well. You know, nobody could have predicted his demise. And for those people out there who say, yeah, but they came back with Cliff Johnson and hit the ball out of the park and it never looked back, they overcame it. Yeah, but you know what? If Bon Scott had lived, you think Back in Black wouldn't have been a great album? It would have been bigger than this one. With him singing, it would have even been as big or better than what what Brian Johnson did. Now, I don't have a problem with Brian Johnson. I love the guy. He hit the ball out of the park with his first album with them. Great musician, great singer. But being second to Bon Scott is not a bad thing. Not a bad thing at all. Anyways, I think that they would have done just as well on Back in Black, or maybe even better with Bon Scott. But of course, that's hypothetical. We'll never know. They were great on this album with them, and they've been great on everything else that they did prior to it. This album just got more commercial exposure and international exposure, and it was produced by Mutt Lange, and it was much more polished than some of their predecessors, and got them a lot of exposure. Great album, you know. Very few groups come up with albums like this. Very few. You know, I don't know where they rank in the top bands of all time as far as when they finally decide who was the best of all time and who was the next best. And I gotta say, they gotta be top 10 anyways. Gotta be there. Do they have enough to catch giants like the Beatles and the Zeppelin and Pink Floyd and the Stones and the Who? Maybe not. I don't know. We won't know that for some time, because these things, how it isn't just enough about being great. Yeah, you were great during the time period you were here. You were great during this period of time. So you've been great during the 50 years that you've been around. What's going to happen in 100 years from now? Which bands will still be playing? Which bands will be remembered? Who will be among the bands that people look back and say, like we do with Beethoven and Mozart? Who will be the Beethoven and Mozarts of 100 years from now? I don't know. But I would think that ACDC is going to be one of them. It's going to be there. There's no doubt about it. Anyways, I enjoyed doing that video. I love listening to ACDC. Such a high energy band, such a high energy band. Anyways, I hope that you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please like and subscribe. It's much appreciated, and we'll be back next Monday with yet another look back at a classic rock album. So have yourself a good day. Goodbye.